Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the latest interview with One Nation Under Whisky. I remain your host in this endeavour, Jason Neil Patrick Harris Johnston Yellen, and I am thrilled to finally have made it all the way to Ojai, California. Longtime listeners will know the name Ojai because we have a tremendous supporter in Christopher Seabass Sebastian out here. And Seabass is the subject of today's interview. We, Joshua and I, have had the distinct pleasure of tasting through some Blind Barrels sample packs, specifically designed for us and packaged for us by Seabass. And we've had a ton of fun. But today we make it. I say we. Joshua is here in spirit. I'm here in person. And joining me is Christopher Sebastian. Hello, Seabass. How are you?
It is so great to be here with you, Jason. I wish we all three were here together, but I know that is few and far between for you, so I would not presume to be one of those people as well.
You know, just last night I was pouring at Peaton Meetin. I had a lovely, lovely time, and people asked me, is Joshua here? And I repeatedly said, Joshua's not allowed to come to California.
This is my stomping ground. You do. You have it. You have it on lock. I go to Joshua on the East Coast,
right?
And then you come to me. It works out well. It's like one of those contests where you see like which of the couple is leaning towards the other, and you see who has the hierarchy in it. I won't say what that leans to.
My brother has told me to stop leaning in photographs. I tried to, because I'm taller, I tried to lean to kind of fill a little bit of that top end space.
Yeah.
And my brother, who's taller than me, is like, no, you should stand tall.
Stand tall.
Let people lean into you.
Yeah.
It's a tough place.
You've got some broad shoulders. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks ever so much. So I was thinking in my car ride up today, I came up from Studio City in LA to come up to Ojai here. Lovely drive, a little foggy, kind of in maybe the 3/4 portion, but then coming up into the Ojai Hills.
Yeah. It usually burns off about midday.
It was delightful, really, really beautiful. And I was thinking about the parallels that Joshua and I share with you. Here you are with Blind Barrels, one of a team, then another couple, another three, maybe more, might be a dog involved. There's a group of you doing Blind Barrels, but you also have a day job. Just like in 2011, 2012, Joshua and I started Single Cask Nation. We had our third partner, Seth Glaskin, and we all had day jobs. Yeah. And we worked diligently to build it. And we also had a young family. And I was chuckling to myself in the car because Josh had 2 girls, I had 2 young boys, I'm talking. And combined, we don't have as many young children as you have currently.
That is true. I am the crazy friend that here in the Blind Barrels team, and let's just say that I'm the weird one. Everyone else has 2 kids, and they make fun of me for having 17 children. I have 5, so I might as well have 17 at this point. But yeah, I've got young kids. It was just my daughter's birthday the other day, so my oldest just turned 8. And 8 all the way down to 5 months.
Holy moly.
We're packed in here today.
Wow. And you've been doing Blind Barrels for?
This is our 4th year. Yeah.
4th year, okay.
So it started, and I'm sure we'll get into the history of it throughout, but we have 4 years. We're in our 4th year of actually releasing things. This started out of the pandemic. So we were stuck in our homes, like many of us, with nothing to do. And we had a local group here called the Ventura Whiskey and Spirit Society with one of my co-founders, Christian. He ran it. And we are Christopher and Christian. So that's part of why me being Seabass, which is a wonderful nickname that you guys, I believe, were the first to give to me, it worked out well because you can't have Chris and Chris. It's too confusing. And he's the higher Chris, so to speak.
Oh, gosh.
Chris the greater, I'm Chris the lesser. So I go with Seabass here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we had some wonderful events locally, and we realized people wanted something to do. It was a difficult time for a lot of us. And so what Christian started doing was making up sample packs of whiskeys and leaving them on his front porch. People would stop by, pick them up. This is in the most intense distancing days. And we'd hop on Zoom and spend a couple hours going over things. And sometimes it would be themed. Of course, around St. Patrick's Day, we had an Irish whiskey theme. But we ended up going into kind of a more blind approach, and you can see where this is going, so to speak. And we had some fun blind rye battles, some fun blind bourbon battles, even some single malts thrown into there. And we came to discover that we didn't know shit about what we thought we would have liked, actually. So some of the most expensive drams, so to speak, I'm not going to call anybody out by names, but we had $200 and $250 bottles that were finishing towards the end of our rankings, actually, of the 8 1-ounce samples that we would go through overnight. So you can imagine those are some pretty fun and enjoyable nights of 8 individual whiskeys. Of course, no such thing as palate fatigue whatsoever. So it was all completely objective. But we really grew to understand that we loved this way of learning about whiskey, which was not paying attention to any of the window dressing, but paying attention to what actually was on our palate, what was in the glass, what was in the bottle, and then learning more about it after we saw which way we leaned.
Sure.
For many of us, it kind of confirmed what we did think, but I know I was not alone in being one of those people who said, I looked down upon this bottle because I thought it was overrated, or I heard another person, we're all impressionable, say something about it, and I wanted to appear in the know and hip to what everyone else was thinking. Peer pressure, it's tough, it's tough. And so we loved that discovery process of actually seeing, without the bias of the brand, without knowing what the bottle, on the number that you were paying for it, without knowing what anyone else had said, we actually liked the liquid. And so we had some fun phone calls after 8 ounces of whiskey. Like, there's a business here. One of our CEO was on a lot of these calls, and that's how I actually got to know him. And we thought, there's no way. There's no way, because doing anything with whiskey is very complicated. But yeah, that was a wonderful kind of coming to be moment, growing out of the pandemic in a search to find community, and whiskey is a huge part of that. Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious for you. What was your level of interest in whiskey? Where was your palate in whiskey? I know from tasting Blind Barrels on the podcast with Joshua that Blind Barrels has gone down a very American whiskey path. And so for you, is that where you've been for a while? Did that come out of other partners within the business?
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Yeah, great question. Cheers. So I had actually, Scotch was my first whiskey interest. And I was a college student with not a lot of money to spend, of course, but I had people put me in the single malt direction. So I was a Macallan, Glenfiddich. I say I didn't have a lot of money to spend, and I named some decent things out there.
Macallan, first thing.
Yeah, right. That was probably more of my grandpa whenever we had holidays. So I'll put it that. I didn't have a ton of bottles on my shelf, but I that was my first intrigue. And then coming out of college, getting your first job, I kind of rotated through things. Sometimes I would have an interest in wine, sometimes I would have an interest in beer, but whiskey kept recurring more and more. And I loved just the American whiskey scene was really interesting at that point, which was in about 2013 to 2016. New things popping up, kind of the impetus of the craft movement here in America. And I found you guys somewhere along the way there. Interestingly enough, you will probably look down on me. I started following you and I thought, I'll just stick around for their American releases, their American expressions.
Yes, you're not alone.
I know.
No judgment.
And let's just say that you've opened my eyes to some incredible things along the way. And there's just a hole in my pocketbook. I don't know what happens. It's crazy.
A single cask nation
size hole. Yeah. Stuff's like, where's all this money? There's a single cask nation size hole.
You want to see the family single cask nation collection?
It's amazing. It's right next to my bed right now. That's where the liquor cabinet is. Just having 5 children, I no longer am allowed to have just a whiskey room. That was a luxury that is long in the rear view. So now it's just my side and sometimes even my nightstand. It's floor whiskey sometimes goes into nightstand whiskey, and I promise I don't have a problem.
I love hearing this from a father of 5.
Yes, yeah.
I just carved out a tiny corner of the house for myself.
Exactly. So I was learning more about whiskey, and those I'm right there along with many of your listeners, many of our listeners right now for the padcost. we tend to get really geeky and nerdy about things. I would always read books about whiskey and try to learn more. And I think that it's one of the beautiful things about the whiskey aficionado community is that we don't tend to just be lazy. At least amongst the people that people are buying bottles from you, they tend to want to go deeper. Indeed. And I was definitely among that, where I was wanting to learn more, engaging in Facebook groups back in the day to try to understand more about this amazing spirit. And so I was well along that path, but I wouldn't have ever considered having a job in this whiskey industry. I just had taken, actually right before the pandemic, my first ever distillery tour was at Catoctin Creek, so not
wonderful.
Too far for you.
Yep.
That was the pinnacle of what I wanted to do in whiskey. It's like, as long as I can just go on a whiskey tour, a tour of a distillery, I would be so thrilled. Did that, world shut down. I probably should have maybe taken that as a warning sign. That was in January of 2020. So yeah, you can kind of put two and two together.
Man, you were so close to me at that point. Were we exchanging emails at that time?
I don't think at that point yet, or we might have. It was one of those quick trips where I was not the master of my own domain, in for a wedding, and that was it.
You squeeze in a distillery visit, you don't make it the hour and 3/4 to Jason's house.
Exactly. I mean, maybe I should have, but
in future you will. We know you will.
We had some great whiskey over there. I mean, Catoctin Creek is incredible.
It really is, and that downtown Purcellville location is so cool, and they are so welcoming.
Yeah,
Scott and Becky are awesome.
Oh, and sadly I did not connect with them while I was there, but I think I still have a little bit of your barley wine cask.
Ah, yes.
Wonderful stuff.
Cheers.
But yeah, so that was when.
Is it on the nightstand or on the floor?
It's actually in the cabinet. It has
Ooh la la.
It's on the pedestal. So it was at that point where I had been doing a little bit of presenting for online tastings. We kind of realized, okay, let's formalize this a little bit and let's see where this goes. And I got a call in the middle of 2021 from my buddy, and he said, would you like to be a part of this? And that was Bobby DeMars, who is our CEO and founder. And all behind the scenes, we had that one phone call after 8 ounces of whiskey where he said, there's a business here. And we said, I don't think, yes, 8 ounces of whiskey will make you see businesses in many places. They rarely materialize. He had managed to, in the intervening 6 months or so, found a way to do what we do legally.
Wow.
And now Blind Barrels, just for context, as we've talked about a little bit, it's a blind whiskey tasting experience. But I kind of colloquially refer to it as a subscription. And so 4 times a year, every quarter, we send out 4 blind samples in little, it's 50 ml, so you're looking at between an ounce and a half and 2 ounces of whiskey. You're able to taste all of those blind and then scan a QR code on the back of each to reveal the sample and see what do you actually like.
That's a smart idea, man.
It's fun.
Josh and I loved the idea the second you reached out to us to talk about it. Thought it sounded really awesome.
Cheers, man. And I think that we face a lot of similarities here. We were talking about the similarities. Secondary jobs, being fathers as well, and parents.
And you're in your late 30s.
Early? 34.
Oh,
what does that count? Like
you're a babe in arms.
A babe in arms,
my
exactly.
gosh.
There was a time where I grew out this beard. Listeners, of course. So we should describe the color of my beard for Jess, because I'm sure
just for
Jess will love that. Just for Jess. But I used to get carded all the time, even in my late 20s, and then I just got lazy, probably pandemic, and stopped shaving, and now I don't get carded anymore.
Well, I would call the beard a rich auburn. I don't know if you would agree with that color for Jess.
I love that. Jess, he's spot on. You can put it as a tasting note. It's also like a 7.
I have not tasted the beard, to be clear.
I was about to say yet. I'm like, I'm not going to say yet. I just said it though anyways. Joshua, you can cut this or not.
He will not cut this.
He will not cut this. Of course not. So he had done a lot of work behind the scenes to figure out how do we do this legally? Because of course, it's something that we deal with in shipping and alcohol laws. It's always very complicated. And we are adding in that other factor of not being our own whiskey, and also trying to put a different label on it. So partnerships were really interesting, and we're so grateful to the first few distilleries that worked with us for taking a kind of a leap of faith, so to speak, into something that seemed...
Who were your first? Let's give them a shout
Yeah,
out.
so our first we had 10th Mountain Distillery out of Vail, Colorado, and they're a solid Colorado bourbon whiskey, amazing. We also had Drift Distillery out of California, and they were the first to sign on 100% wheat whiskey.
Okay.
And they also make great barbecue sauce, which is, I mean, might be neither here nor there, but it is delicious. We also had Middle West Spirits, their dark pumpernickel rye,
Of course.
which is one that has stayed on my back bar. I think I've made every single Manhattan with them for the last 4 years, and that's
Wow.
many places. So their dark pumpernickel rye is really amazing, and they do some barrel picks of it now too. But they're just starting to expand. But they're out of Columbus, Ohio. There's a Columbus whiskey trail. I have not visited it yet, but apparently that's something that exists in the middle of Ohio. As a proud Michigander,
Good on them.
I don't like to admit that Ohio even exists, but they do make some pretty darn good whiskey. And then Sample D in that first lineup was Corbin Cash, which is out of kind of Central Valley in California, and they had a bourbon whiskey. They actually mostly do rye, but it was one of the most incredibly different California bourbons that I'd ever tried. It's really almost tropical fruit notes with some milk chocolate, not the dark chocolate that you typically get. So really kudos to them. They've been David Souza from them has done really good work since then, and they now have 10-year whiskey, which is
I know David Souza.
You do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, wow. Well, not a name I was expecting to hear. I was just thinking to myself, so for your first 4 in your first pack, 3 bourbons and a rye?
And I'm doing the math here. So 2 bourbons, a wheat whiskey, and a rye.
A wheat whiskey, I'm sorry.
Wheat whiskey.
And a rye.
Yeah. And the wheat whiskey, so we really kind of were covering different parallels. And it was one of the interesting things about it, and I'd love to get your input on this too, not to flip the interview on you, but we have found many times where we're like, okay, we kind of think this is what's going to be popular in our lineup. We have found, especially with that 100% wheat whiskey, not something that you see a lot of the time. Not something that we thought would be really popular, but we thought we need to, sorry to drift, we actually really love you, but we thought this would be awesome to include, especially because they were the first to take a chance on us. We needed it kind of as a beta test. And it's ended up being very popular. And one of the things that we see is we have people within our subscribers, we have people in 45 states at this point in time. They're at very different paths, very different points of their whiskey journey.
Sure.
Some people who are just getting into it, many people who are trying it out as a couple, many people who are trying to connect with a father and say they're in different parts of the country, but they get the subscription and they join it together. So it's community is almost primary, funnily enough.
Right.
But we put a lot of work into the whiskey.
Right.
So we have been shocked and surprised some of the time to see which are the popular ones. That drift was very popular, and it's a single barrel offering, so they kind of rotate now. So the one that we had is long gone, but still high quality spirits.
No, I think that's one of the things with, as you're rightly saying, with the consumer, you will be surprised as you go along. Last year when we put out our MGP,
the blended?
No. This was a straight up MGP, and I think it was a named MGP. Yes, it was. The reason I have a hard time remembering it is it sold out in 4 hours, and it was a remarkably smoky MGP.
Was that the weeded one?
Yeah.
Very different MGP.
Right. Yeah. And that went in 4 hours. And so maybe with that being wheated and you talking wheated, maybe there's a demand for wheated bourbon out there. Okay. Glad we've got that on wax.
We've got it on wax. Our CEO is a massive wheated bourbon fan.
Okay.
So we've had several here, and I'm amazed to see that some of them, even coming from small distilleries, there's a wide variety of them. Which is incredible.
Of course.
Yeah.
I also love what you're saying there about community. I was at a tasting at Bino's house. We talk about Bino on the podcast from time to time. Good friend, a longtime supporter, and we were going around the table and introducing ourselves, and almost all of us in our introduction talked about our earliest whiskey moments being based around community. And so for you to talk about Blind Barrels, primarily being community. Single Cask Nation was about the community of the nation. The whiskey is important, as you rightly say, but that community is also important. So for a community to come out of a pandemic when we were searching for community, I think you were in the right moment at the right time.
Yes. Yeah, cheers. It really seems to have resonated with a lot of people. And we also are the first to say, we don't know Jack. I mean, we know a little bit. We
I
try
was
to know
going
a
to
little
say,
bit.
yeah, that might be a little harsh to yourself.
But I've listened to you guys, and I've learned new things every day. And of course, we both know that you're never done learning, of course. And so the minute that you start to think you know everything, you can take me out back. Yeah.
When you meet somebody who thinks they know everything in whiskey, walk away from that person, because you're going to hear a whole load of nonsense fall out of their mouth. Any quote unquote expert worth their salt will tell you they're not an expert.
Yeah.
That's the clincher. Anyone who tells you they are an expert,
run, don't walk.
those people make me nervous.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry to derail us there, but I was curious about and really to give honor to those that supported you in the beginning,
Absolutely.
just like we do with Aaron, Glenn Murray, Kilholman.
We love how many of them are still. I mean, some we would love to have back in your bottles, of course.
Right.
But yeah.
Not looking at Kilholman in particular.
No, of course not. Why would we?
So that was your beginning. That was your first, and then how did things proceed from there?
Yeah, so it became something that it's a balancing act, of course, and we're going back to that original concept of us having different jobs. This used to be something that you could put a few days of work into a quarter, and I knew it would be fine. And then starts to turn a little bit, and we would go from, okay, well, yeah, a lineup's coming up. We should probably lock somebody in. To now we're planning the years out. Now we're saying, okay, who do we have and that's locked in? And we found that partnerships are really key. And first of all, it's just a partnership with these distilleries. We are putting it, technically it's white labeling, although it's not, but we are giving them all the credit. We are saying that this is not our product at all whatsoever. We had to get a very specific type of license to make sure that we didn't need to add anything to it. And that was one of the elements, which is to say, there's a lot of places out there where you can get a license and then you redistill, of course, or you're adding something to it. And we really wanted to be upfront and say, no, this is just actually going to be a partnership where all we are doing is bottling the whiskey from our incredible partners and then serving as a spotlight on them. It's such a competitive industry, as you know from the people that you partner with, that we want to show the amazing, incredible stories that are out there. There's thousands of distilleries just in the United States alone, which boggles the mind. And it's what we have seen. I think part of why it resonates is part of it is community. Part of it is that maybe some people have been burned by a bottle that they regret in the past. And sometimes that could be an overpriced offering from a place that you took a chance on, you didn't love it, and you end up with an entire bottle of that thing. So we love the idea of tasting, and then from that tasting, being able to say, okay, we actually carry all those bottles, we have prices on the bottle shop as low as if you were at the distillery themselves. We're not trying to make money off of that, but we want to have the distilleries be the focus, and they are the partners that we're really working with. And so we've seen from our first lineups where we had a couple hundred members to now over 4,500, something like that.
Congratulations.
That it's now helping out these distilleries. We used to have to go and beg and plead and say, please let us partner with you. And now we're able to work with them and say, we want you guys to succeed. We want you guys to thrive, so to speak. And so that's been a real amazing growth, where I remember seeing the totes that we were getting our whiskey in at first, and it wasn't much. We're maybe like 5 to 10 gallons, and now we've got 80 to 90 gallons coming in of product to just go into the sample bottles, and then be able to actually have our members buy the full bottles from that afterwards. So it's been amazing growth.
And so that was one of my follow-ups there. So when a member of Blind Barrels can then buy the full bottle, does that full bottle carry the label that's on the sample bottle? Does that have an in-house label? Does that have an OB or distillery label on it?
Great question.
What's that looking like for you?
It has an OB label on it. And so that's again, part of the logistical, I don't want to say nightmare, but kind of nightmare, which is making sure we've sadly moved past single casks. We can't do that anymore.
Okay. Wow.
It's been probably a year and a half since our last single cask.
Oh, wow.
Because we want to have that consistency of saying what you are drinking in the sample bottles is actually what you can purchase. So we've had the luxury of doing some blends, some 2 and 3 cask blends that have enabled us to do that for now. But for instance, we just worked with Ben Holiday, So the Holiday out of Weston, Missouri. And so they put together a blend for us of their soft red winter wheat, the Rickhouse proof. And then that went into our samples, and then they bottled a whole bunch of that in their own Ben Holiday branding that we are then shipping out to our members. So we've got partnerships for that too. Wow. So we've seen, I actually don't know the numbers right now, but usually you get about 300 to 400 bottle sales from each brand that's in our lineup. And there's been some that we have sadly sold out of existence. The sample pour that I am going to blind you on. I do a really bad job of dropping breadcrumbs throughout.
You just dropped a loaf.
I dropped a whole loaf in your lap. But we've had that happen, which is, I think, a good problem to have. But it is still a problem.
Absolutely.
And when working with a lot of these distilleries, some of the conversation has been, we don't think that we have enough product for you right now. Maybe check back as we scale.
Heard that before.
I'm sure you have. So that's what the goal is. You do a tasting. You might not love everything, and we can guarantee it's been very amazing to see a representative sample size of people. Not that I'm some kind of data statistician, but when we usually have in some of our live tastings 70, 80 people, there's always going to be usually 5 to 10 people who like each sample the best.
Sure,
and
of course.
Of course, that's not, even for us, when we do it, there's different orders. We love all of them, like our children. I mean, now we've worked with 56 distilleries over the course of the last 4.5 years.
That's a great number as well.
It's incredible. We've had one repeat.
Okay.
And that's, I think, speaks to the strength of the whiskey industry here in the United States in general. To go back to a question that I kind of glazed over earlier, American whiskey is where we are focused right now. That will probably change a little bit. We've actually had some very interesting conversations with shared friends that I'm sure we'll be hearing more about in the future. We'll talk about this offline. About different maybe Scotch one-off kits that we can do, and even thinking about tequila and things of that nature. Because the broad world of whiskey is incredible. Right now our licensing is here in the United States, focusing on American craft whiskeys, and that is a moving target. Craft doesn't necessarily have a very specific definition.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. What did the Supreme Court say about pornography? Like,
when you see it.
You know it when you see it. And so there are some where we try to adhere to what the American Craft Whiskey Spirits Association categorizes as craft below certain thresholds for distilling and whatnot, not being acquired by major individuals like Diageo and whatnot. It's not hard and fast rules, because at the end of the day, if there's really good liquid, we want to get it into our sample bottles. We're not going to hide the light under a bushel, so to speak.
I was curious from something you'd said earlier, where you're finding people joining you at different stages in their journey. And when you start Blind Barrels and you're thinking, okay, we're going to put 4 whiskeys in a pack and we're going to send that out to a group of people, and hopefully that group grows. Yeah. Are you now in a position where you start to think maybe there needs to be an introductory subscription where you can learn? Here's a middle of the road subscription where you're learning, but you know a thing or two, and maybe here's a higher end subscription where you know your stuff and we can keep pushing that envelope for you. Is there any kind of that thinking happening, that chatter happening?
Yeah, those are great. Those are great thoughts, and it's something that we have thought about and considered. So we've done certain one-off kits with certain partnerships that have been similar to that, like for certain audiences who are maybe the bourbon geek, so to speak. And we've been reluctant, and we've just rejected the idea of, we'll do a bourbon kit or we'll do a rye kit. Part of it is that we want people to actually have that bias shattered of, I'm a bourbon guy. I don't drink American single malt. We're in lockstep with you guys and trying to shine a light on that incredible growing category here in the United States. And we've always done that from the start. I think we've featured in our 3rd and 4th kit in American single malts from Corsair and from Westward.
Nice.
Which was wonderful spots. But it goes back to community in a sense, where we've had certain one-off kits where people can just buy them and then enjoy them themselves. But we really like the commonality of it's third quarter in 2025. All of our subscribers are getting the same whiskey. And regardless of whether or not you live here in California, or it's Joshua over in Connecticut, and maybe internationally at some point, you three and Jess could get one as well. We want everybody to be drinking the same spirit. But what you were talking about is a very great thing that maybe I'm going to run that up the ladder a little bit. But we have some other expansion ideas in mind that are along those lines of whether it's spotlighting certain particular distilleries and seeing what do their lineups look like, what do their SKUs look like back to back to back. But like you said, people are on a whiskey journey at every step of it's something that contains multitudes, so to speak. So when we have a hazmat whiskey in a lineup, of which we've had a couple, we have to have education about that, because you don't want somebody to say, "Oh, I'm a drinker. Yeah, like I have these as shots." Say, "Don't wait, hold on here. This is 140 proof. You could do that. We don't necessarily suggest it." But that's been a really fun part for us to stay on our toes, is realizing we can't just get really minute into the crazy nerdy details, although we've got the nerdy details if you want them, but we want to have this broad category of, okay, how do you taste whiskey? Here's the broad categories of whiskey, and then we can go deeper with people if that's what they want. So we try to meet everybody where they're at, but education is such a moving target. You've got to get to know your audience, and we've seen some people that come to us and they're looking just for bourbons. They're looking just for some of the nerdy stuff, which we've worked with some pretty cool places. But there's others that say, "Oh yeah, my wife is here with me, or my husband is here with me, and they don't really drink whiskey, but they're actually liked this one." And even my father-in-law is a subscriber, and he used to say, that all tastes like whiskey to me. And I said, okay, we're doing a tasting. And they usually save the bottles until I visit, and then they have me taste them. And it's there's 7 people around the table. Trying to split 50 mLs of whiskey 5 ways it's a math problem that my liberally educated brain cannot handle. So it ends up being something that it becomes a process of sips as opposed to evolution of a pour. But there's still education happening there. Yeah.
It's a wild idea. I'm also thinking about that fresh consumer who could potentially be scared off by a mid-60s, high 60s bourbon if they hadn't encountered that previously. So I get the role of education here. Joshua and I, Jess over in the UK, getting out in front of these bottlings, talking about them as much as possible. Again, back to peat and meeting. I had 4 on the table last night, 3 of which were above 60. And we always talk about America not being afraid of the high 60s, partly because of the hazmat bourbons, doing the work there. Even at a whiskey specialist meeting, like peat and meeting, folk were like, whoa, 62, the Ardnamurchan Merkin, 64. Like, even there, people were like, oh, that's a lot. Like, okay. And then you would taste it and say, oh, but it's not hitting like it's that. And then I would get into the education of lipids and texture and ethanol being lipophilic, et cetera, et cetera. And so even there, where you would expect that to be the very knowledgeable, the audience well worth challenging, there was still some caution around a higher number.
Yeah, it's something that we've seen a lot. And I know from certain episodes that you guys have spoken on, that is one of it's not drinking like that. It's not drinking like this. And so there are times when, I think sometimes when people see it, they instantly react. And of course, we know that's maybe it's our body's self-preservation reaction. We see the numbers in the 60s and we're like, oh dear, so 60% alcohol. But having the blind element of it, we feel like there's certain things with a consumer, and of course our bottles, they do have the alcohol listed on them.
I figured they would have to.
They have to. It's very tiny. I think that the max, the minimum that the TTB allows is something crazy, like a half or a quarter millimeter or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I don't think we're quite that small, because I don't know that you can see something.
I don't know if you can.
But it is there. And so sometimes there are people who say, yeah, I went and I looked at that, which is, I think, a prudent thing if you need to know yourself and how much you're going to drink. Our sample bottles being, say, close to in the 7 to 8 ounces of whiskey total, we even are recommending a consumer to not drink them all at a certain point in time. They're good for sharing.
Yeah, there you go.
But in a single session, that might be a lot. I do think it's a lot of whiskey to have. I for myself, when I'm doing the tastings, I think I'm able to get 3 tastings out of those.
Oh, okay. Out of 450s?
Out of the 450s. And I'm trying to stay sharp, like on my feet. But again, I have to talk a lot at the end of these and tell people about the whiskeys, because that's a part of when we do our tastings. We're having people taste it through blind first. And it is a choose your own adventure, so you don't necessarily have to do that. But we like to see the whole array of it and then go back to it for a second tasting where we do reveal. And then you're able to see, okay, like I see the whole lineup and the scope and the order of it, because there's always an order and there's usually a theme that we figure out at the end of the day, because we're tasting our samples blind. We're seeing what's the best whiskey, and it's a part of our authenticity. And sometimes that makes it very hard when we have, I think I have about 25 samples of whiskeys to taste blind that I need to go home. Probably not tonight, but probably in the
falling
next week.
behind on your own brand.
On my own brand. It's terrible. But it helps us say we've had lineups where we didn't know of some of the whiskeys beforehand, which is kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And it's a discovery element for us. And what do we love and what do we fall in love with along the way that we didn't know existed right in our backyard?
But I think that's the thing that I keep experiencing. And I know Joshua and I have been tasting Blind Barrels on the padcost for a while now. And I've kept wanting to join, and like a lot of people who talk to me as well, I haven't yet joined. Hearing that it's quarterly. Hearing that there's education attached to that, knowing that when you and I chat, I feel like sometimes talking to you is a little bit like talking to Nora and Adam at Lost Lantern.
Yes.
You're all going so deep into, I hope I'm not being rude, maybe I'll keep it clean here. Lesser known. American producers of American spirit. Even as I get out of my Scotch hole, I'm becoming American single malt biased.
Sure.
And so
towards.
So I feel like I've probably got a couple hundred American single malt producers in mind. But then you start mentioning bourbons or wheat whiskey. And I'm immediately saying, oh, I've never heard of them. Oh, never heard of them. No, also never heard of them. And so, again, back to what we were saying earlier in our conversation, there's still so much to be learning. And just like Single Cask Nation talks about curation, you at Blind Barrels are clearly curating for a consumer. I'm 100% joining. I'm sitting here in Ojai.
I'll give you a discount code later on. I think it's Whiskey 10. I think that's an evergreen one. I apologize, though. I think it's Whiskey 10 spelled with an E. So
interesting.
We'll see. Dear listeners, I'll let you know whether Jason's principles trump his pocketbook later on.
I would have spelled it wrong 10 times in a row. Just on principle.
Just on principle. And the 11th, you're like, okay, this is good. He hasn't added it yet.
I'll look away while I type the E.
It's like, I'll type it for you. But that's the curated element is something that I love the commonalities between independent bottlers and what we are doing, which is kind of an offshoot of independent bottling. It's, in a sense, I hate to use this term because there's a lot of stigmas to it, but a marketing arm, so to speak, where we know that in the whiskey industry, getting liquid to lips is the most important thing. And we've had distilleries, quite frankly, come to us and say, well, what do we pay to be a part of this? And that is something that we will never do, that we have never done, and we will never do. We say that we pay for the whiskey, and we're usually able to work out something because it's not going into glass and things of that nature. Bulk whiskey is a beautiful thing in a sense. But it's something that we say we will be paying you for the whiskey. It gives us, in a sense, the ability to own it and say we can do whatever we want. I'll let Joshua edit that out. We can say whatever we want about the whiskey. Now, granted, we love it, and we don't put things in lineups that we don't love.
Sure.
But I'll just say that we've kissed a lot of frogs to get to the point where we're at.
Okay.
Because it is the case that there's a lot of
Okay.
people who might be more business savvy but don't have the quality of spirit that would love to go to hundreds, if not thousands, of lips and have it be tasted. Because let's just say that our subscribers and your subscribers, I know that for myself, I have purchased Aaron bottlings that are like OB bottlings, and have done the same thing for Oklahoma.
Right.
If you love a distillery, you will go and seek them out on their own.
Exactly.
And that's what our subscribers have been doing as well, and especially in the current landscape of whiskey, which is difficult. It's very competitive, and it's an uphill battle. We've heard some sad stories from many brands that we have both worked with where there's struggles, and you're trying to fight that uphill battle to keep the doors open.
Exactly.
And we want to help them as much as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A couple very quick questions, and then maybe we'll go into a little bit of liquid to lips. Have you had a collaborative partner that was in a Blind Barrels that is sadly no more? I'm thinking of this last night. I was talking to somebody up from San Diego, and they were talking about San Diego distilleries just closing doors left, right, and center. So I figured the sandbox you're playing in, people were maybe a little closer to the edge than the sandbox we're playing in at Single Cask Nation.
It's true. I will say that no one that I know of who's completely shut doors. But we have worked with Westward, and we know that they're in the midst of struggling and restructuring, so to speak. And that was sad. We featured their Pinot Cask.
Cracking, absolutely cracking.
And the thing is, I hope that they make it through, and I think that they will. I've heard from their president that the restructuring seems to be going well.
Good.
But we just heard recently Black Button.
Exactly. I was going to ask you that question. Yep.
And they were in our second ever lineup, and Jason Barrett was an incredible partner. And I know they've done some stuff with you too.
Yep.
That when we saw that, we were really sad. Really sad to see it. And but it's a very interesting thing, which is.
And they're restructuring as well, to be clear. They haven't shut doors.
Exactly.
Just for listeners catching up with us here.
Yeah, whenever this airs. And hopefully things will be much in a more positive light when we see them. But those are the two that have come the closest. And I think to a certain extent, some of them they're the ones who have taken advantage of good business opportunities. And I view what we do as a good business opportunity for them, because it is a partnership that they will do whatever it takes to survive. And they will be able to pivot and not just say that, we're going to make just a couple of bottles every year. Like, okay, we've had even some friends where it's like, we have 80 bottles total. I'm like, okay, you might want to make more, but I also understand the stress of if you're making more. So it's like an age-old thing. If you want to make $1 million in whiskey, start with $5 million.
That number is going up every year.
I thought it was $2 million.
I am also curious, are you only putting in Blind Barrels what you're sourcing from wood? I know you said with a higher number of subscribers, you've moved away from the single casks. But so say, and this is just an example that comes to mind, but say an Old Forester 1920, right? Great bottle, I buy that off the shelf. Would you ever see a bottling like that in a Blind Barrel sample pack?
As of right now, no. But let me take that in a couple of different directions. Old Forester's great. We love it. And we actually did a partnership with Fred Minnick where it was for his subscribers, where we did kind of a cool thing. It wasn't quite what we do, but it was interesting. It was barrel bourbon. A through C, A, B, and C were 3 components, and then you had a final blend in D. That was the blend. So it was kind of a blending exercise, so to speak. And that was very fascinating. Now, the interesting thing about that was that was a one-off blend that you could never buy. And so that's something that we're very aware of for our consumers, is that you want something that's going to be around for a little bit. There's something beautiful about the single cask and something wonderful about tasting something that will never be. There's a romance to it, and that's why we love you guys.
Cheers.
But there's also something about, hey, I want to fall in love with something that I can rely on, that I can keep on the regular. And even if it's a little bit different, so say a particular blend, like Holiday is a really good example, because I think that we've now sold out everything that was that particular blend. But they do a really good job of being very forward about everything and up front about everything that's in that the current batch that's on the shelves, and saying, okay, well, I'm playing around with this rick house and this floor of this rick house, and it's kind of these notes, and that changes a little bit from here. So we like those brands that give you a lot of information. So Old Forester would be a very interesting example, because they're really big.
Sure.
And we don't have anything against them writ large.
Sure.
But if I'm reading your question rightly, we do like the idea of something being in our boxes that isn't just a limited release offering. Something that
that's what I was getting
on.
at, exactly that. It was what could be on a liquor store shelf.
Exactly.
That a consumer could perhaps meet for the first time through Blind Barrels, the way a consumer might meet it for the first time at a bar. Where a bartender makes a recommendation for a consumer, because it seems like you're filling a lot of different niches, or at least you have the opportunity to fill a lot of different niches. And if you've cracked the code on getting samples into 45 different states, that's incredibly valuable, and has a lot of value for producers who want to share the word, spread the word. And you're doing heavy lifting.
Oh yeah, we try, and that's our lawyers do great work for that. I'm not going to mention lawyers' names, but yeah, that's something that we help the consumers with too, which is we can get you in here, and with our partners and licenses, we can help you with set up with a distributor that will get you where you need to go. It's not a negative thing for us if you're widely distributed, because it's, at the end of the day, we don't necessarily mind if you're buying from us or if you're buying from somebody else, although we try to keep things in stock for people who want to buy through us, but we're not making money off of that. That's part of it's a value added shop. It's a perk of membership.
That's wild,
so to
man.
speak.
That's a good way to talk about it. Perk of membership. Is really smart. Okay, those were my couple of quick hitters. We've been tasting through this interview, through this chat. This is delicious. This isn't what I'm being blinded on.
This is what you're being blinded on.
This is what I'm being blinded on.
This is what you're being blinded on.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sorry. If you want some more, you may taste some more. So this is something that it's something that we've worked with in the past. And I have, listen, we've got so many whiskeys. I was talking to you before this. I was agonizing with my wife about what should I pour for Jason.
Gotcha.
And I grabbed a bottle off the shelf. So here we are. So let me know, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so for Jess, this is a wonderful. I maybe wouldn't go quite as far as sanguine copper, but I would go for maybe heavily polished, burnished copper.
Nice. Do you want to know what I wrote?
Yeah, what did you write?
I wrote burnt amber.
Okay, burnt amber. I think the emphasis is on the burnt, because there's definitely a darkness to the red that's in this. In sitting here sipping it, I didn't actually, because you and I were talking, I wasn't nosing it as much as I normally would. In sipping it, wonderful spice, both a wood spice and one of the classic wood spices for me tends into cinnamon. But cinnamon without necessarily the heat of that. So
I had put cinnamon donut.
Look at that.
Which is, I might be actually, like, again, dropping all these little things. But no, I agree with you, because it's not that crazy spicy cinnamon stick.
No.
It's cinnamon with a sweetness added to it.
Agreed. Yeah, wholeheartedly. So returning to the nose now, definitely that cinnamon is right there as well. There's cinnamon. I know you've led me with cinnamon donut, which I agree with, but I'm also getting a cinnamon brown sugar. So there's a richness to what's happening on the nose there.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite noses that I've had in a whiskey in quite some time. And for our members, I'm sure that we're on the same line about this. The best whiskeys are the ones where you can just live in the nose for a long period of time.
100%.
And it develops, it opens up. And I poured it a little bit for you so it could open up a little bit.
Yeah.
We are dealing with a cask strength whiskey here.
Oh, bless you.
I have nothing but the best.
Maybe a marzipan on the nose.
Yeah.
A little bit more of that sweetness that we've been alluding to in different forms.
Yeah.
It is definitely a welcoming nose. And I think for seasonality, you know, we're sitting here the middle of July in California. It's a nice temperature day. I've got short sleeves and short pants, short trousers.
Yeah.
This seems like a Christmas dram. Like this around the fireplace, this with the lights on a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Like it's that warmth to the spice. Takes me into baking spices.
Exactly.
Like it's so pleasingly warm. However, I could also see fall in the evening, sitting around a fire, you know, an outdoor fire pit.
Yeah, yeah.
With this on that, you could return to this nose endlessly. Any chance of banana bread on the nose?
I could see that, absolutely. I leaned towards with this some of the nuttiness. Especially when you can have a banana bread with maybe walnuts in it,
right?
Something like that,
right.
Which I absolutely but there is clearly that baked goods element to it.
Oh gosh!
And of course you're getting caramel with this. We were tossing, right? Like maybe I don't know if you've ever drizzled caramel on your banana bread. Maybe somebody will. Maybe we're starting a trend.
You better believe I have. You bet. Maybe even salted caramel drizzled on my banana bread.
Yeah, that's absolutely going more towards that Christmassy time. Chocolate, yeah, like a salted caramel apple. Or something.
I may have also led my own witness because I'm getting a definite saltiness to the palate.
Yeah.
As I was talking about that.
Yeah, and that's. I think that's absolutely the case. And sometimes, I don't know if this is for you, when I get good wood presence, that sometimes has led to, I don't know where I get this, some salinity potentially. And half the time, when I say weird things like that, I just try to look at people like, am I crazy? Like, is this? I just say whatever comes to mind. But there's definitely a lot of welcoming standard notes with this, and then some weird pops where I'm getting that's a little bit different. Like even maybe that apple cider element to it. It transports you to apple picking, where you have that really good apple or cinnamon donuts and some really good apple cider, fresh pressed.
It's amazing what's happening across my tongue and along the sides of my tongue here. And it actually takes me back, again, last night, pouring the peated Arran.
This is very not peated, listeners.
Right,
We're very different from last night.
Only last night for the peated Arran. But in talking about the Arran or the Lochranza distillery, I was busy talking about baked apples. I was talking about cinnamon. I was talking about a little citrus presence in there.
Love that.
And on this palate, and certainly to the edges of the tongue where it transitions into the finish, it is baked apple. It is cinnamon, and it's apple cinnamon oatmeal.
Oh yeah.
Right through the palate and right into the finish.
Yeah.
That is incredibly warming.
Yeah.
And something that I want to return to. I also, for the first time, leading my own witness once again. Would potentially go down a new charred oak path on the palate for the cask.
The listeners, he's glancing over to me.
I'm so nervous.
With quick glances.
Joshua is very good at definitive statements and blind tastings, and I am not. And so the fact that I'm trying to go with my gut here, and my gut is saying new charred oak, don't overthink it.
Yeah, you should go with your gut.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
Is my motto. So
yes, that was part of my agonizing of what I would do.
That's why I'm glancing at you, because I'm kind of like, did he set me up on this one where he's going to say new charred oak, but I'm going to actually give him some dessert wine? Cask.
This is Tokai. This is just straight up Tokai. No, I was not being mean to you.
Okay.
New charred oak is a very good call, and I will also say, because I didn't tell you this beforehand, I meant to. This is not one of your own. This is not something. I would not do that to you once again.
I did tell Bino that I was going to come on and do a live Blind Barrels tasting with you, and he was like, "Oh, so another opportunity to not guess your own whiskey."
Was that the Ben Nevis that we did?
That was the Ben Nevis. The good news and the part that Josh and I took from the whole experience was we at least got to say, "This is delicious. Whatever
really
it is,
good.
this is delicious," and I would buy a bottle of it.
And I would love to bottle this whiskey.
Unfortunately, we got it wrong. Beno also reminded me of a previous time when I was in LA. And I think one of our stones of Sten Ness was presented blind in a tasting. And I did not identify that either.
Yeah.
So the list of me fucking up blind tastings is long and detailed.
It is so hard, listeners. And we do a weekly radio show in LA, and we call it Four Whiskeys. And we kind of take turns blind tasting ourselves and our host. And we do have kind of a gamification that we do where it's like closest when it comes to proof and age and type of whiskey and whatnot. The thing that we've learned is that we're all really bad at it, even working for this. And we've gotten close. There are some, and you hold on tight to the ones where you call the whiskey itself. And usually it is just, oh man, you go with your instincts. You're like, I feel like this. But there's been other times, and this is one of the wonderful things about whiskey, is that it presents itself to you differently at different times. We actually had a whiskey that I did a couple of weeks ago where I just kept it simple. I did high proof rye, cask strength rye. And we had Taconic Distillery, which is out of Stanfordville, New York, I believe. And it was a 95.5 rye, their own, not a famous 95.5 rye. But we had always gotten really piney notes to that. And I'm sitting there, and I just sipping it, and we're putting these tastings together in our own homes and then tasting them. Like, did I grab the wrong whiskey? Because I wasn't getting that whatsoever. And then, it presented other elements that we had tasted from that. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about it. It's an ever-evolving thing, and whiskey is an ever-evolving thing. This is presenting differently in terms of the cinnamon being really front-forward, whereas before, when I'd written these tasting notes, I got nuts. I was getting a lot of nuts. But now it's that apple and the cinnamon that is really present. And the banana note, I'm so glad. You can't be all-knowing with your own tasting notes. You got to. It's a collaborative process.
But and again, I say that all the time. Depends on time of day. Depends what you've drunk with it. Depends what else is happening in your life. They're not objective notes, and we even say that for the flavometer on the label. It's a jumping off point. If you don't get the rich being a 7 and your rich is a 5, tickety boo. If your sweet is an 8 and not our 6, tickety boo. It's the beginning of a conversation. Same as the notes we put on the website for selling the bottles. It's a guiding light, and 100%. That'll change as you go. I will say, returning to the nose, getting a bit of black cherry.
I love that
on the nose.
Absolutely. Like a black forest cake, so to speak.
100%. It is funny because without announcing it in the interview, Seabass did pour the Single Cask Nation Black Spoke Bridge 12-year-old, which is what I was going to pour for you later in this interview.
I'm so sorry. We've got great notes.
It was awesome when I saw you pull that out.
So funny.
And so we were just sitting, just quietly imbibing that. But there's some of the notes from that Black Spoke Bridge 12 that are present in this Blind Barrels sample.
That was something that I thought about, and not wanting it to be just a very jarring element, which we could have done. We could have done very jarring and have it be like you see clearly the differences. But I felt like these worked very well side by side. And of course, that is Scottish. This is American. I'm not going to drop any more breadcrumbs about what it is, but you're thinking with New Charred Oak, maybe a very different style of whiskey, so to speak.
He said, hopelessly leading the witness, who is both blind and dumb at this stage.
Oedipus in the way. I'm sorry, we're making jokes.
So for American, I am asking myself that question, right? New Charred Oak, okay. Is it 100% malted barley? Is it a corn mash bill? Is it a rye mash bill? And I'm getting so much spice, but such well-balanced spice that I'm asking myself, here we go, I'm going to start committing some things to wax. And you can let me finish this sentence before you tell me how wrong I am.
I will.
I don't think it's a straight up rye because I'm not getting as much of the rye spices I might expect. There's no dill coming along with this, although that little brown sugar that I announced earlier and the baking spices has got me nervous.
It's evolving a little
Right?
bit.
I do wonder if it's a bourbon with higher rye in the mash bill. I will let listeners know Seabass is nodding his head to every single thing I'm saying.
Yep.
And so I'm guessing that I'm 100% wrong on everything that I'm saying.
Jason is great at tying his own news. It's incredible.
And I don't have Joshua here to blame, so I'm really in trouble. So I'm going to, listen, I've got more chance of being wrong here than I've got of being right, so I might as well be confident.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to commit myself to new charred oak, bourbon with a higher rye in the mash bill. Could not name you a distillery here.
I would be incredibly amazed if you
thank you.
Yes,
that's a fantastic get out Jeffrey card. So go ahead, give us the reveal. I've committed as much as I'm willing to commit.
So, and I listeners, I love hearing the thought process, regardless of it being wrong, because that's what we do a lot of times. Like, I'm thinking this because I'm thinking this. So, this is a bourbon.
Oh my God! I've got new charred oak and bourbon. I could leave now, and I have cracked this.
And even more impressive is that you said high rye. This is something that we have often said. It really presents as high rye, and in many of our tastings, that's what people say. It's actually a lower rye, but I think that certain other elements will explain why you said that. So this is also from an independent bottler. The World Whisky Society. And so they are a place that is very interesting. I'm going to pull out the bottle because this is something that I would have walked past on the shelf many times. For a different reason other than, I don't know it. It's kind of very busy of a whiskey. This is a bourbon from their Doc Holliday line. It's a 10-year-old bourbon. And they do a lot of different things. And the Doc Holliday is everything that you'd imagine from a whiskey made from Doc Holliday. Look at the top. It has like a carbine bourbon as the cap. Or a carbine with bullets as the cap. It's got like a steer on it. And they have some whiskeys that are not this whiskey. So this is a 10-year-old bourbon that is distilled in Georgia. Georgia. So Ivy Mountain Distillery out of Mount Airy, Georgia is sadly a distillery that is no longer. And so that's I'll get into that in a little bit. 122 proof, so 61% alcohol by volume. 10-year age statement, so a 10-year bourbon. Again, we don't see bourbons frequently being that high. I mean, you do sometimes, but sometimes it's a little bit over-oaked. This spent some of its time in Texas, actually. So the Lavals were stop me if you've heard this before, a family with moonshine connections. But actually, this is one where what I appreciated from the World Whisky Society is that they were not hiding this story. They actually were selling the book called North Georgia Moonshine that was written about Carlos Laval. And he started in this distillery, Ivy Mountain Distillery, in 2012 with his daughter, actually. She was about to retire, and he said, I made whiskey back in the day, got caught, and got off scotch-free, and decided, I'm never going to do that again. I don't want to run in with the law. But there's this moonshine element, too, the mash bill, which is 80% corn, 10% malted corn, which is fascinating, going back to the old moonshiner's trick of soaking a bag of corn in a stream in order to help with fermentation. I don't know how much it did actually help with fermentation. Sprouted corn or malted corn is not something that you see a lot. 5% rye and 5% malted barley, which is very fascinating. But they made whiskey for about 8 years, from 2012 to 2020, when sadly Carlos died. He passed away. And so they ended up not wanting to carry on without their master distiller, selling off the product on the bulk market. And it's something that the World Whisky Society found. And they said, well, we're based in Georgia. We would like to bring it back to Georgia. And it's one of the best stories that we've uncovered that's actually, not just marketing, right? Like you get
human
that
beings.
a lot. Yeah, it's human beings there. And it's kind of fascinating to see a distillery, Ivy Mountain Distillery. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
No.
I had certainly never heard of it before. And part of that was when I was really taking this seriously in 2020, they were gone, which is sad.
Yes.
But he had a long history of knowing how to distill, and this was his retirement project. Many amazing pictures there are of him just sitting next to the still. He loved this and had a huge passion for it. And so, unlike many distilleries where, it's a family-run place and you got to kind of learn how to distill, he had a lot of that know-how and took it over himself. So I think there was a high quality of spirit that was going into these casks. And I think there was also a bit of that accelerated maturation going from Georgia to Texas, never in temperature-controlled warehouses or anything, and a little bit of a road trip whiskey, so to speak. This was one of the ones that we sold out of existence, sadly. This was a single cask. There might be some that is still out there. We've actually seen Georgia pop up on certain blends, actually. Another blend that we worked with later on was called the Art of Alchemy.
Okay.
And they had a fun 3-person company as well. So we had a connection there where they put together a blend from the home states that they all existed in. So Kentucky and Tennessee, and then the third member was from Georgia. So they put that all together. So for those of you who are out there, you might, if you see a Georgia distilled bourbon, this might be from Ivy Mountain, and it's incredible. And I would love, now that you know that, what are your thoughts? Did it present as something incredibly different from a bourbon side? Obviously, it has some of those notes that you've come to rely on and expect with American bourbon, or just bourbon.
No, you had me at American bourbon. No, that was really cracking, and I think if that had shown, if it had shown up in a Blind Barrels pack, as it showed up today with, one of the men of Blind Barrels, it would be a delicious experience. I can see why people rushed to buy the bottles of that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about having that in your house around a season. One of the things Josh and I talk about all the time, would you reach for that to share with people who come to your house? That you would definitely reach for and say, try this on for size. You might even lead someone with that blind as well.
Oh, yeah.
Where do you think that came from? And the fact it's Georgia distilled and partially Texas matured before returning to Georgia.
Yeah.
That's a wacky tale to be able to tell.
It is wacky. And we'd like to provide that information because it seems relevant.
Yeah.
We want to know, and we are very blessed, I think, and not lucky, but most of our distillery partners give us all the information because they put in the work and they really want to say, this is how we engage with people. We're different because we're not just churning out whiskey. Now, granted, some of the places that are churning out whiskey are churning out some damn good whiskey, but there's a story element and you can connect with them. And in reading North Georgia Moonshine, I felt like a connection to the Lavells, and sadly passed away now, but you can tell real heart in whiskey, which again, I'm getting into cheesy marketing material, but it's true.
But I think it's exactly what we've talked about all the way through today's conversation is community, people, history. It's vital. You can't do any of this without all of that. Yeah. So, you know that Josh and I are big supporters. You know that Josh and I wish you all the very best.
Cheers, man.
And I swear to all that is holy, I will use my Whiskey 10 code, whiskey with an E, to get my discount. I'm going to become a subscriber to Blind Barrels.
Man. That means a lot.
I'm convinced every which way from Sunday. So thank you for making time today. I know a dad of 5 on a weekend, that's a big ask. So sincere thanks to your very dear lady as well for covering the home front that has allowed you out to discuss all of this with a cheeky jamoke.
Yeah, kudos to my wife, and we always say that the real MVPs of Blind Barrels are our wives, who allow us to do this crazy thing and take trips to go like, do weird stuff like, talk about whiskey and like drink whiskey and wander around places where they make whiskey. But they're incredibly supportive, and I know that you and Tamara and the of course Joshua and Haida as well.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. And we're all in it together.
None of us are anything without the partner behind us. Yeah. So, well, continued success to you, to all of you, and to your family. Blindbarrels.com. Definitely check out the Whiskey 10 code with an E.
With an E. I think it gets you 10% off a quarterly or an annual subscription, and I think we toss in tasting glasses and things like that.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fun to be had. Well, thanks again, sir. Until the next time.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sincere thanks to Christopher, Seabass, Sebastian for joining for today's interview. Hell of a cool chap, hell of a supporter of Single Cask Nation as well. And getting to know him over emails and then getting to see him on trips to LA. We've talked about meeting each other at Jack Rose in DC on trips out there. I know he's had the chance to enjoy regional pizza with Joshua in New Haven. Yeah, he's just a top bloke, and I'm really glad that we got to share an interview with him today. So, listeners, if you want to send in any questions, info@singlecasknation.com. Joshua has been talking about questions at onenationunderwhiskey.com up and running again. That has been a labor of love for so many months, but he suggests that the finish line is getting ever closer. So, thanks to you for listening. Thanks so much for your support of One Nation Under Whiskey. And for the nation out there, thanks so much for your support of Single Cask Nation as well. Blast with Blind Barrels today, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care. Cheers. Okay, we are recording. Can you give me a check on your mic?
Check 1 2, check 1 2.
Awesome. I'll give a check 1 2, check 1 2. Levels are looking good for Joshua.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Joshua.
Easy. Settle down. You keep your regional opinion thoughts to yourself.
I want that elote pizza again. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
This is good. I feel like Joshua's in the room with us right now. This is very good. Okay.